Hello, YouTubers. I find that I have a whole stack of news stories here stacking up in front of me. So I'm going to go ahead and do a special edition with some of this to clear the channels a little bit and bring you some news. I know that sometimes you don't have a whole lot to watch on Saturday night, so maybe I'm filling a void for you a little bit. If you like what I do here on the Level-Headed News channel, you can give it a thumbs up and share it around and let other people know about what we're doing here to try to bring them some news they're not going to see on the mainstream media. The first article that I have for you is off of regated.com. All of these URLs are in the description of the video, so you can check them out more if you want to do your own research on them or read them for yourself or pass them around or whatever you'd like to do. This particular article, as soon as my computer catches up with me here we go. Trump, I think we should take a drug test prior to the debate. Now, this is an interesting concept, so let's see what Mr. Trump has to say. In a speech Saturday afternoon in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Donald Trump floated the idea of drug testing contenders in presidential debates. Athletes, they make them take a drug test. I think we should take a drug test prior to the debate, Trump said, liking the idea to that of the testing of many athletes, most notably Olympic-level athletes, undergo as a condition to compete. He continued, because I don't know what's going on with her, but at the beginning of her last debate, she was all pumped up at the beginning, and at the end it was like, take me down. She could barely reach her car. Anyway, I'm willing to do it. These comments come as widespread speculation is still swirling regarding the health and stamina of Hillary Clinton. Her health has been in question for several months, but speculation became reality at the 9/11 memorial last month when she collapsed and had to be lifted into the van. An event documented with video evidence. To add additional context, it may also be important to note Clinton's campaign schedule for the month of October. Out of 22 planned events for the entire month, Clinton will be attending one. The third presidential debate, essentially a must-attend event for any candidate. Clinton's campaign schedule here. This stands in stark contrast to the schedule of Trump, who has already done 2 rallies in 2 separate states today alone. The drug test would also clear Trump of the wild conspiracy theory being pushed only by Clinton's most fervent, intense supporters that he is a cocaine user. Their theory relies on a single point. He breathes in through his nose or sniffs frequently during his debates. Of course, due to the far-fetched nature of it, as well as the complete lack of evidence, the cocaine theory hasn't gained much traction outside of small circles of Clinton supporters. The question now is whether or not Clinton will actually agree to the test. But my advice to Mr. Trump would be to take the test the day of the debate, regardless of his opponent's willingness. This would once for all destroy the rumors against him, effectively humiliating all those who pushed them, and would also leave the country's voters wondering what health or drug issues Clinton could possibly be hiding from them in her unwillingness to take a simple drug test. So there is that article. Interesting. The next one we have is off of BizPack Review. And this says, bewildered cousin of Trump, accuser, gushed over Trump for a decade, suddenly comes out with sex story. The cousin of one of the women who has accused Donald Trump of sexual assault questioned her story as an attempt to get back on television. Released a statement on Friday from John Barry to rebut allegations by his cousin Summer Zervos, a former apprentice contestant who claimed Trump made unwanted sexual advances toward her. I am completely shocked and bewildered by my cousin Summer Zervos and her press conference today, Barry said in the statement. Ever since she was on The Apprentice, she has had nothing but glowing things to say about Mr. Trump. For almost a decade, my cousin would talk about how much she looked up to Mr. Trump and viewed him as an inspiration, a success story she wanted to copy. According to Barry, Zervos had praised Trump as kind and caring, and she converted her friends and our family to become Trump supporters. That was until Summer invited Mr. Trump to her restaurant during the primary, and he said no. Barry noted, I think Summer wishes she could still be on reality TV, and in an effort to get that back, she's saying all these negative things about Mr. Trump. An email from Zervos to Trump's secretary from April the 14th, 2016 was also released by the GOP nominee's campaign. Zervos wrote about her California restaurant and said she wanted to reconnect with Trump. He has witnessed both my highs and lows operating a small business, and I am pleased to report business is good, she wrote. I would greatly appreciate reconnecting at this time. He will know my intentions are genuine. But in a press conference she held on Friday, Zervos' letter was an attempt to confront Trump and give him a chance to clear the air. I can only imagine Summer's actions today are nothing more than an attempt to regain the spotlight at Mr. Trump's expense, Barry concluded in his statement, and I don't think it reflects well. The following tweet of the email reportedly sent to one of Donald Trump's assistants and just 5 months ago is circulating on the media, and they've got a copy of that here. Says email from sexual assault accuser to Trump's assistant 5 months ago. And the email reads, hello, I'm certain you're a very busy woman. I am in a unique situation, being that I am the only former apprentice who operates a business where Mr. Trump supporters can walk in, express their admiration for him, and inquire about my experience. Mr. Trump has a great deal of support in Huntington Beach, California. He has witnessed both my highs and lows operating a small business, and I'm pleased to report Sonny's Restaurant has a long history of making people feel special. We have a diverse crew and embrace anyone who is honest while working hard. Mr. Trump is cut from the same cloth. I would greatly appreciate reconnecting at this time. He will know my intentions are genuine. Thank you. So there is that article. I have here is off of newsbusters.org. And this one says, furious FBI agents speak out on Hillary, nets censor. Attorneys at FBI and State Department are furious about how FBI Director James Comey let Hillary Clinton off the hook, and they are finally speaking out. However, if you get your news from the big three, ABC, CBS, NBC networks, Fox News, and the New York Post, current and former agents and stories that paint a picture of an FBI and State Department full of hardworking employees who are irate at the way Clinton escaped prosecution over her email scandal. Fox News, Malia Zimmerman and Adam Housley cited an unnamed source that claimed members of the investigative team were dismayed and disgusted. And back on October the 6th, the New York Post Paul Sperry cited retired agents. The FBI has politicized itself and its reputation will suffer for a long time, and claimed the accommodations given to Clinton and her aides were unprecedented. But that's not the only Clinton scandal revelation that has been either ignored or underreported in recent weeks. The following is a brief list of just some of those controversies and how they have not been covered by the big three network evening and morning shows. State Department officials speak out on email investigation. And this was from the 13th. It says, the decision to let Hillary Clinton off the hook for mishandling classified information has roiled the FBI and Department of Justice, with one person closely involved in the year-long probe telling FoxNews.com that attorneys on the case and unanimously believe presidential nominee should have been charged. The source, who spoke on FoxNews.com on the condition of anonymity, said FBI Director James Comey's dramatic July the 5th announcement that he would not recommend to Attorney General's office that the former Secretary of State be charged left members of the investigative team dismayed and disgusted. FBI agents and analysts worked around the clock with 6 attorneys from the DOJ's National Security Division Counter-Espionage Section to investigate the case. No trial-level attorney agreed. No agent working in the case agreed with the decisions not to prosecute. It was a top-down decision, said the source, whose identity and role in the case had been verified by FoxNews.com. A high-ranking FBI official told Fox News that while it might not have been a unanimous decision, it was unanimous that we all wanted her, Clinton's, security clearance yanked. The vast majority felt she should be prosecuted, the senior FBI official told Fox News. We were floored while listening to the FBI briefing because Comey laid it all out and then said, but we're doing nothing, which made no sense to us. Zimmerman and Housley's piece also included those willing to go on the record. Also is backed by a report in the New York Post this week, which quotes a number of veteran FBI agents saying FBI Director James Comey has permanently damaged the Bureau's reputation for uncompromising investigations with his cowardly whitewash of former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's mishandling of classified information using an unauthorized private email server. It has politicized itself, and its reputation will suffer for a long time. I hold Director Comey responsible, Dennis B. Hughes, the first chief of the FBI's Computer Investigation Unit, told the Post. Retired FBI agent Michael M. Biasiello added to the report, saying Comey has single-handedly ruined the reputation of the organization, especially angering the team, which painstakingly pierced together deleted emails and interviewed witnesses to prove that sensitive information was left unprotected, was the fact that Comey based his decision on a conclusion that a recommendation to change would not be followed by the DOJ prosecutors, even though that recommendation to charge would not be followed by DOJ prosecutors, even though the Bureau's role was merely to advise, Fox News was told. Basically, James Comey hijacked the DOJ's role by saying no reasonable prosecutor would bring this case, the Fox News source said. The FBI does not decide who to prosecute and when. That is the sole province of the prosecutor. That never happens. I know 0 prosecutors in the DOJ National Security Division who would not have taken the case to a grand jury, the source added. One was never even convened. For Clinton aides that scrubbed emails. And this was from September the 29th, so a couple weeks ago, back on this. A tech specialist who scrubbed Hillary Clinton's email archives was recently found to have sought help on Reddit for how to hide a certain VIP's email address, was acting at the behest of Clinton's aides, Cheryl Mills, and IT specialist Brian Pelagio, a top House Republican, charged Wednesday. The clincher just last week, he's going online and trying to delete these Reddit posts. Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio said of Colorado-based tech specialist Paul Combetta, who reached a limited immunity deal with the Justice Department. He's trying to cover up his tracks. He's trying to cover up the cover-up. After a House Judiciary Committee hearing, Jordan pointed to FBI's timeline of the investigation released to Congress and to public online. The FBI's records show July 2014 was a pivotal month for the Clinton aides and support staff because that summer, the State Department warned Clinton then Chief of Staff Cheryl Mills the request for Clinton's work-related emails would be forthcoming from Congress. On July 23, 2014, Combetta got a call from Mills, and the following day he got an email from Clinton IT specialist Pellegrino, who set up the server. On July the 24th, Gambetta went online to Reddit, where he asked for help stripping out VIP's or very VIP email address from a bunch of archived emails. He also wrote, basically, they don't want the VIP's email addresses exposed to anyone. Jordan told Fox after the hearing, they, Gambetta referred to, could only be Mills and Pellegrino, based on the FBI's own records. Like Gambetta, Mills and Pellegrino were granted limited immunity deals by the Justice Department, but in such a high-profile case, legal experts say the deals would not go through without senior FBI leadership consultant. And then this goes on, if you want to read more on this. The arms dealer claims he was scapegoat on Libya's operation to protect Clinton. There's a section on that here if you'd like to read up on that. The next one, the next article that I have for you is off of BizPac Review. It says, Biden does it in front of us. Outraged Dems won't talk about Creepy Joe's inappropriate touching. No, they don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about Clinton or Trump. See, the left continues to harp on unproven allegations that Donald Trump inappropriately touched women and said dirty words 11 years ago. Many are wondering where the outrage is about Joe Biden. For years, the vice president's inappropriate touching of women and the invading of their personal space has been a punchline seen as harmless. But now that the barrage of claims against Trump has reached zenith, social media has begun asking where the mainstream news sources are on creepy Uncle Joe's unwanted approaches. And there's a video in this, and there's a whole slew of pictures of him touching and whispering right up against women and carrying on, and a lot of tweets about how he's handling everybody in these. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. There's got to be at least 20 pictures here of him handling everybody. And one of these tweets says, "Creep alert! Joe Biden can't stop touching. Uncle Joe has bad case of the touches, and your wife, daughter, mother could be next." Yeah, nobody talks about all that. Now I want to talk about Trump. Man, oh man. The next one here is off of Breitbart.com. It says, WikiLeaks. Clinton team recommended using Emily's List to coordinate ads with Super PAC. Scroll down a little bit. Here we go. The Clinton campaign explored using the pro-choice advocacy group Emily's List to coordinate messaging strategy with Priorities USA and Super PAC, according to a leaked email from the campaign. And this is how the article reads. It says the campaign was trying to save up $4 million by getting Priorities USA to run an ad campaign that it wanted. After conferring with the Clinton campaign's lawyer, Mark Ellis, Orrin Scher, the director of paid media, sent an email to John Podesta, Huma Abedin, Robbie Mook, and several other Clinton campaign officials with a plan in August of 2015. The message was included in the John Podesta emails released by WikiLeaks. To get the message and Clinton footage to Priorities USA, they would use Emily's List to film video of Hillary Clinton and send smoke signals. It gets us many of the benefits without some of the risk, wrote Scher. While he recommends the smoke signals strategy, it is one of two options. The first being coordinated issue advocacy ads with Priorities. Emily's List, he explained, would publicly post suggested themes and portions of the video to send a message to super PACs. It is unclear whether the campaign implemented their strategy or whether Emily's List agreed to serving as a third-party surrogate for the campaign. But the Clinton campaign had already advanced the idea to the level of a conference call with senior staff. Ultimately, these determinations are up to Emily's List, but there is no restriction on HFA's ability to make suggestions or recommendations, he wrote. The strategy memo reads like this. Hi, everyone. In advance of today's call with HRC, following several discussions we had today with Mark, we wanted to send a quick update on where our recommendations stand. The decision before us is whether to, number one, pursue coordinated issue advocacy ads with priorities where we'd be breaking new ground, or two, to send public smoke signals in a more traditional way to the priorities, i.e., we're recommending option two as it gets us many of the benefits without risk. Assuming the priorities, i.e., picks up the signals and airs the ads, it would save the campaign anywhere from $2 to $4 million, depending upon how on air for. To execute the strategy, we recommend the following. We work with the hard side of Emily's List, as they have both a coordinated and IE side. Emily's List coordinated side would need to shoot its own footage with its own consultants, but our consultants can be involved. Under this plan, EL would do a shoot with HRC as soon as possible, done by EL consultants. There too. We may also invite EL crew to a town hall. EL would then post portions of the video to a designated page on its public website and would include on that page suggested themes, media market targets to its website. Ultimately, these determinations are up to EL, but there's no restriction on HFA's ability to make suggestions or recommendations. This page would serve as a signal to priorities, other IEs, and other aligned organizations. The key to making this plan work is getting a shoot on the schedule as soon as possible. We would also get HFA's footage from the shoot, which we also very much need. So there's that information. The next one is off of zerohedge.com. And this one says, if I can get the ads to shut off of it here. Well, that's easier said than done, isn't it? There it goes. The most important WikiLeaks built the Obama cabinet. Perhaps the most startling discovery of the WikiLeaks dump so far didn't come from the most recent emails surrounding the various Hillary scandals, though there are many great ones. But from 2008, when John Podesta served as co-chair of President-elect Barack Obama's transition team, the email came from Michael Froman, a former Citibank executive who single-handedly built the entire cabinet of what was supposed to be the Main Street president. The email in question was even sent from Froman's Citibank email address, rookie, and includes a list of African American, Latino, and Asian American candidates broken down by cabinet, deputy, and under assistant, deputy assistant level, plus a list of Native American, Arab, Muslim American, and disabled American candidates. Apparently, Obama wasn't as worried about placing women in senior level positions, but Froman decided to offer up some suggestions anyway. And the insert says, while you did not ask for this, I prepared and attached a similar document on women. Froman even went ahead and scoped out which people should be appointed to which cabinet positions. And that insert reads, at the risk of being presumptuous, I also scoped out how the cabinet level appointments might be put together, probability weighting the likelihood of appointing a diverse candidate for each position, given one view of the short list, and coming up with a straw man distribution. And then it has the insert of the documents in this, if you would like to read those. And the article goes on and says, as New Republic points out, the Froman appointments ended up being almost entirely right. The cabinet list ended up being almost entirely on the money. It correctly identifies Eric Holder for the Justice Department, Janet Napolitano for Homeland Security, Robert Gates for Defense, Rahm Emanuel for Chief of Staff, Peter Orszag for the Office of Management and Budget, Arne Duncan for Education, Eric Sinsky for Veteran Affairs, Kathleen Sabulis for Healthcare and Human Services, Melody Barnes for Domestic Policy Council, and more. For Treasury, 3 possibilities were on the list: Robert Rubin, Larry Summers, and Timothy Gethner. This was October 6th. The election was November the 4th, and yet Froman, an executive at Citigroup, which would ultimately become the recipient of the largest bailout from the federal government during the financial crisis, had mapped out virtually the entire Obama cabinet a month before votes were counted. And according to the Froman Podesta emails, lists were floating around even before that. Expected that Froman, a longtime Obama consigliere, did the key economic policy hiring while part of the transition team. We didn't know he had so much influence that he could lock in key staff that early without fanfare while everyone was busy trying to get Obama elected. The WikiLeaks emails show even earlier planning. By September, the transition was getting pre-clearance to assist nominees with financial disclosure forms. And there is a cabinet example post copied into this that has all the names and everything in it. It says, so, if this history is any guide, then the real power within a future Clinton administration is being formed right now. In fact, another email from January 2015 reveals that Elizabeth Warren was already intently focused on personal issues almost 2 full years ago, as evidenced by the following recap of a conversation that Hillary had with her chief of staff, Dan Gelden. He was intentionally focused on personal issues, laid out a detailed case against the Bob Rubin School of Democratic policymakers, was very critical of the Obama administration choices, and explained at length the opposition to Antonio Weiss. We then carefully went through a list of people they do like, which EW sent over to HRC earlier. We spent less time on specific policies because he seemed less interested in that. He spoke repeatedly about the need to have in place people with ambition and urgency who recognized how much the middle class is hurting and are willing to challenge the financial industry. And that full article is copied into this if you'd like to read that. And at the bottom it says, to the extent there are any purists left, this should clear up any illusion of who controls the political powers that be. The next article I have is off of BizPac Review. Leaked speech. Hillary Clinton tells business leaders way to fix economy is with more food stamps. Hillary Clinton argued that expanding food stamps and other safety net programs is essential to fuel economic growth at a speech to General Electric executives, according to an excerpt of the transcript made public by WikiLeaks on Friday. Economic growth will take off when people in the middle feel more secure again and start spending again, Clinton said in her speech at General Electric's global leadership meeting in January of 2014. The speech excerpt was part of 80 pages of transcripts from Clinton's speeches at private business events that are campaign flagged as potentially damaging if released. The file, compiled by campaign researchers, was attached to and one of the leaked emails of John Podesta. Clinton made the remarks while the Republican-controlled House of Representatives was debating reducing funding for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, in 2014 Farm Bill. Giving people income assistance, like the food stamps program, would help the economy because families on food stamps will have more money to spend, Clinton argued. We need to get back to Henry Ford paying his workers a high wage because he wanted people to buy his cars, Clinton told the group, referring to Ford's 1914 decision to double increased wages and bonuses for his employees. Ford's decision to raise workers' pay was also about retaining the best employees. More than 43 million Americans currently receive SNAP benefits, and the government will pay about 45 billion in benefits this year, according to the U.S. Department of Agricultural data. Food stamp enrollment spiked in 2012 with nearly 48 million people enrolled in the program, but enrollment has slowly declined after the 2008 recession. President Barack Obama issued waivers to the work requirement, which allowed able-bodied adults without children to receive benefits without proving they were looking for a job. Dismissing the fact that there's always the assistance where they find one guy somewhere who misused food stamps. Clinton said the food stamp program is not just good for economic growth, but is also the compassionate thing to do. Are we so separate from each other that we don't know that there are people who have a really tough time? Have we just walled ourselves off from those people and have no reason to understand or care about them? Clinton wondered. Even in her neighborhood in Westchester County, New York, where the average individual's income is $79,000 between 2002 and 2009, Clinton said she saw a lot of immigrants, a lot of, people down on their luck, use those food stamps just to try to get through the month. I can't make this stuff up. The next one is off of Natural News. Voters warned. You've already lost America. This election is about taking it back in the last nonviolent way possible at the voting booth. And this one reads, if you're not following the flurry of email dumps now being released every 24 hours by WikiLeaks, you're missing out on the most damning revelations of systematic government corruption in the history of this nation. The emails reveal unprecedented criminal collusion between the State Department, the Clinton Foundation, the Obama White House, the FBI, the DNC, the leftist media, and Hillary Clinton presidential campaign. In essence, they're all conspiring to rig everything. Town hall questions are rigged, debate questions are rigged, the polls are rigged, the news coverage is rigged, the justice system is rigged, and no doubt the election itself is going to be rigged or stolen in order to make sure Hillary Clinton wins. The entire mainstream media, it turns out, is nothing but a collection of prostitutes pretending to be journalists. In reality, they're all Clinton operatives who operate with eerie similarity to obedient Nazi Party propaganda pushers. I can't possibly cover all the incredible revelations coming out of these emails, so I strongly recommend you read newstarget.com and breitbart.com to stay informed. DrudgeReport.com is also carrying many of the revelations as they are being released. Your country has already been overrun by criminals. If you love America, you're going to have to take it back. The bottom line is that you've already lost America. It has been overrun by criminal cartel of cheating, lying, murdering, women abusing, anti-American traitors who pretend to act as representational government. The media dutifully covers up all their crimes while pretending to be engaged in the news business. And the FBI pretends to be engaged in law enforcement while actually granting blanket immunity to all the criminals running Washington. Yes, James Comey is a criminal traitor to America and needs to be indicted and imprisoned for his collusion with the Clintons. Your country has already been overrun. You've already lost it. You're now living in a third world style dictatorship that merely pretends to be a representational democracy. And if Hillary Clinton manages to lie, cheat, or steal her way to the White House because there's no other way she can get there, then America will descend even more rapidly into a totalitarian dictatorship run by smirking anti-American elitists who seek total domination over us all. This election is the last nonviolent opportunity to take your country back. This election on November the 8th is the last opportunity to take America back without having things descend into open revolt or civil war. If enough Americans vote against Hillary Clinton and the establishment, we have a slim but real chance of indicting and imprisoning the criminals running the power cartels in Washington. This is America's last chance to avoid the kind of massive bloodshed that comes with open revolt, because I do not believe the armed American people will tolerate 4 more years of being ruled by a criminal cartel in Washington that systematically strips away their rights and freedoms. I truly believe that if Hillary Clinton wins this election, things will inevitably unravel to the point of open armed revolt, where tens of thousands of armed Americans march on Washington to occupy the government buildings and arrest the corrupt, treasonous bureaucrats running the corrupt government. In fact, I believe many of the elements of military would join in such an effort, making it a combined citizen military coup against corruption in Washington. Open war coming to America's streets if Hillary Clinton steals the White House. In this process, sadly, many American lives will be lost. Blood will be spilled in the streets, and many patriots will die before they manage to seize control of government buildings and arrest all the criminals for high treason. As this is happening, I also see the possibility of armed patriots seizing key buildings of the leftist anti-American media, literally taking control of CNN and other media outlets that systematically lie to American people to protect the corrupt criminal regime in Washington. Remarkably, it won't even take a very large number of armed citizens to achieve this. Just a few thousand people could achieve all this quite readily, as most members of the local police, National Guard, and U.S. military will likely decide to stand down and allow it to happen. The real men and women of law enforcement in America already realize that Washington, D.C. is a filthy cesspool of criminality and corruption that has to be cleaned out before America can be restored to a nation of law and order after all. Most police and military, of course, despite Hillary Clinton, and they know their lives will be put at grave risk by a Clinton presidency. If they get the chance, they will gladly join an effort to overthrow the corrupt criminal regime and call for new elections after the wholly dishonest leftist media has finally been prevented from constantly lying to the American people. Yeah, imagine an election without the leftist media constantly colluding with one candidate to deceive the public. As all this is going down, you should fully expect violent extremist leftists to be setting bombs all over the place, with funding for the bombs coming from George Soros, the key funding source of domestic terrorism in America. Who do you think funded the Black Lives Matter assassinations of police officers? In all, you can expect widespread bloodshed and violence, mass chaos in the financial markets, extreme political instability, martial law, and extreme dangers for citizens. This is the future for America if Hillary Clinton wins. The best way to avoid all this is to vote against Hillary Clinton and halt the totalitarian march of the Democrat regime in Washington. Vote for Donald Trump or lose America forever. The best way to prevent any of this from unfolding is to vote against Hillary Clinton and halt the march of the totalitarian Democrats who seek to rule America forever. Make no mistake, if they win this election, they will seek the complete destruction of the Republican Party, the criminalization of conservative speech, the government seizure of websites that oppose Democrats, the imprisoning of constitutional patriots, and of course the mass disarmament of the American people, such as a prelude to mass genocide. Did I say genocide? You bet. It's the final solution. That's always the end game of totalitarian regimes like the Democrats are running today. Listen to the extreme hatred and bigotry of your average Democrat today, and you'll learn just how vigorously they seek to engage in mass murder of anyone who opposes them. That's where this is all headed. They want to take away your guns, then execute you by the millions so they can install a permanent communist regime in the White House. If you don't believe me, then you're ignorant of human history, and you'd better get up to speed quickly so that you can help stop the genocidal totalitarianism of Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. The Second Amendment is America's immune system against tyranny. If she wins this election, American patriots will realize they have no choice but to invoke the Second Amendment immune system for America. The Second Amendment immune system means that when government becomes so corrupt, so criminal, and so lawless that you can no longer kick the tyrants out of office at the voting booths, the people must do so using kinetic instruments of national self-defense, such as rifles. Because I don't want to see America descend into violent revolution and open revolt, I urge you all to vote for Donald Trump this November 8th and then prepare to stand by him as the criminal leftist fake media attempts to destroy him from day one. Be ready to defend your country by any means necessary. If you lay down and surrender like the rhinos in Washington, you will lose everything and will wind up dead in a ditch with a government-issued bullet in your skull. Don't surrender to tyranny like too many Jews did in the late 1930s. They mistakenly thought if they all turned in their guns, they would contribute to a peaceful society with low crime and high government integrity. What they got instead was genocide, concentration camps, and mass violence carried out by big government run amok. Learn the lessons of history. Never, never, never give up your rifles to any government, no matter what, and especially not a criminal government run by traitors. Always demand that those in power abide by the law and answer to the people. If they refuse to do so, vote them out of office and as quickly as possible. If they rig the votes and steal the elections, then march on them and remove them from office using the tools at hand. Restore constitutional power to the people and the states. Demand open, honest elections and a fair media that isn't part of the regime. Protect your national borders and founding documents. Stand your ground and refuse to be enslaved. Only then can you really call yourself a citizen. So there's that editorial. The next one we have here is off of libertyblitzkrieg.com. Obama enters the media war, so why his recent attack on free speech is so dangerous and radical. Control of the news media is an instrumental key feature to any totalitarian government. In contrast, the experiment known as the United States has lasted so long under relatively free condition is due to the preservation of free speech and press via the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. In case you haven't read it in a while, here's the text. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peacefully to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Nowhere in there do I see an exception for the conspiracy theories, but apparently constitutional scholar Barack Obama has an alternative interpretation. As reported by AFP, Pittsburgh, President Barack Obama on Thursday decried America's Wild Wild West media environment for allowing conspiracy theorists a broad platform and destroying a common basis for debate. Recalling past days when 3 television channels delivered fact-based news that most people trusted, Obama said democracy requires citizens to be able to sift through lies and distortions. We are going to have to rebuild within this wild, wild west of information flow some sort of curating function that people agree to, Obama said in an innovation conference in Pittsburgh. There has to be, I think, some sort of way in which we can sort through information that passes some basic truthiness test, and those that we have to discard because they just don't have any basis in anything that's actually happening in the world, Obama added. That is hard to do, but I think it's going to be necessary. It's going to be possible, he added. The answer is obviously not censorship, but it's creating places where people can say this is reliable and I'm still able to argue safely about facts and what we should do about it. End of quote. The above may sound good on superficial level to people with zero critical thinking skills, but even the most elementary analysis exposes it as the obvious and dangerous attack on free speech that it is. Let's zero in on a few things he said in closer detail. He describes the media environment as the wild, wild west. kind of sounds like an environment in which people are free to say, publish, or record whatever they want and let the chips fall where they may. Seems consistent with the First Amendment to me. He notes that there needs to be some sort of way in which we can sort through information that passes some basic truthiness test and those that we have to discard. This sounds good on the surface because, after all, who doesn't want truth? The problem lies in the fact that governments can and do lie all the time about stuff of monumental significance. Let's take the Iraq War, for example. As I discussed in August post, questioning Hillary's health is not a conspiracy theory. It says, of course, the New York Times rendering judgment on those pushing conspiracy theories would be downright hilarious if it weren't so sad. For example, the paper itself exhibited so much restraint when it came to peddling U.S. government conspiracies about Iraq in the run-up to one of the most inhumane, unnecessary, and destructive foreign policy blunders in America's history. In fact, the paper was ultimately so embarrassed by its own behavior, it issued a statement in 2004 titled "From the Editors, the Times and Iraq." Meanwhile, there were millions of people in the Wild West of opinion making, yelling and screaming that the government was misleading the public about Iraq in order to go to war. So who got it right, the New York Times or the Wild Wild West? If Obama had his way, those people who assert that the public was being misled into the Iraq war would have been dismissed as conspiracy theorists not worth paying attention to since they refuse to agree with the government facts. Obama's position is such an obvious authoritarian slippery slope. One has to ask why he would dare go so far. My view is that there's full panic occurring right now at the very top of America's shadow government due to the fact that the public is no longer falling for corporate media propaganda. Once again, let's turn to something I wrote in the Post, questioning Hillary's health is not a conspiracy theory. And it reads, as I look at the landscape in 2016 to date, I observe emergent signs that alternative media is finally beginning to take over from the legacy mainstream media when it comes to impact and influence. The mainstream media, unlike with John McCain in 2008, had decided that Hillary Clinton's health was not an issue and chose not to pursue it. Many in the alternative media world took a different position, and due to mainstream media's failure to inform the American public for decades, the alternative media drove that issue to top of the news cycle. That's power. This is an incredibly big deal, and the mainstream media intuitively knows what it means. It means total loss of legitimacy, prestige, and power, all of which is well deserved, of course. So here's the bottom line. 2016 represents the true beginning of what I would call the media wars. Alternative media is now capable of driving the news cycle. Mainstream media now has no choice but to fight back, and fight back it will. It will fight back dirty. This is going to get very ugly. But by the time the dust is settled, I think much of the mainstream media will be left as a shell of its former self. By ugly, I didn't expect the president of these United States to so publicly and radically advocate in favor of free speech restrictions, but here we are. Let's conclude by tackling another portion of his talk where he states the answer is obviously not censorship, but it's creating places where people can say this is reliable and I'm still able to argue safely about facts and what we should do about it. Who exactly is supposed to be granted the power to create such spaces and verify things as factual? We know that government lies all the time, yet when they lie, they present such falsehoods as facts. It's the duty of the people to decide what to believe and what not to believe. This is not the job of government or anyone else for that matter. Yes, it's true that there's an unbelievable amount of garbage out these on the internet, but yet we manage. What seems to be happening here with Obama is not so subtle attempt to blame the rise of Trumpism on alternate media as opposed to the actual culprit, his oligarch coddling policies. It's a sign of pathetic desperation from a man who has completely and utterly failed the American public while protecting the rich and powerful. It's an ugly manifestation of an executive who cannot come to terms with the justified anger of the public who feels betrayed by him. Sure, a compliment preening and entirely propagandist media would make Obama feel a whole lot better about his miserable legacy, but we shouldn't sacrifice the First Amendment to achieve this. And there's links that you can click on if you want to see more about this topic in this article. The next article I have for you is off of businessinsider.com, and it says U.S.-led coalition increases airstrikes on militant-held Mosul. This has been going on here for a few days. It says Khazar, Iraq, the U.S.-led coalition, says they are increasing airstrikes in and around the militant-held city of Mosul as Iraq ground forces build up ahead of planned operations to retake the city. The coalition said in a statement on Friday their planes had conducted more than 50 airstrikes against the Islamic State group in Mosul area over the past 2 weeks. Iraqi ground forces are moving into place to the south and east of Mosul. The operation to retake Mosul is expected to be the most complex yet for the Iraq's military. Iraqi and coalition forces say some 30,000 troops will be needed to retake the city that has been under IS control for more than 2 years. And there's several links on this one that you can click to get more information on what's going on with that. And the next one that I have is off of CNN.com, and it says ISIS sending wounded fighters from Mosul as battle looms for Iraq city. And it says ISIS is telling wounded fighters inside Mosul, its last bastion of power in Iraq, they can go to the terror group's power base in Syria as Iraqi forces and others prepare to retake the key Iraqi city. A source inside Mosul tells CNN. The Iraqi military, Kurdish Peshmerga, and Shiite parliamentary force are getting ready for battle place in the air and on the ground. Some low-level prisoners of ISIS are being released, the source said. These would include those jailed for beards, cigarettes, or clothing offenses. Wounded ISIS fighters have been told to go to Raqqa, Syria, the group's de facto capital, the source said. The source inside Mosul said a tunnel network is growing, including one big enough for motorbikes from the outskirts of the city to nearby village of Hamdania. A man imprisoned by ISIS in Mosul for 2 months said he was forced to dig in more than 12 tunnels on the eastern side of the city. Among the groups joining to fight ISIS in Mosul are the Shia-led Hashd al-Shabi, or Popular Mobilization Unit. Some 9,000 Sunni fighters are part of the PMU, said Ahmad al-Asadi, a PMU spokesman. He said PMU forces also include Christians, Yahudis, and Turkmen. The troops of Popular Mobilization Forces are waiting for the launch of the 0 hour to participate in the battle to liberate Mosul, Asadi said. Members of the PMU met Saturday with Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi to discuss support of the Iraqi security forces on ground in Mosul operations. They also talked about fighting ISIS in Hawjah, about 100 miles south of Mosul, which has been under the terror group's control since 2014. Kurdish Peshmerga forces are getting ready for the battle as well. Masoud Barzani, president of the Kurdish regional government, tweeted Saturday, "The time has come to begin the liberation of Mosul." The preparation for the operation to liberate Mosul has been completed and has paved the way to begin the Mosul operation, Barzani said in a statement. Peshmerga forces and the Iraqi military have already made plans for the future of the city, he said. Baghdad and Erbil, the capital of Iraqi Kurdistan, have also agreed to establish a joint higher political committee whose task would be to supervise the affairs of Mosul after the liberation. Witnesses inside Mosul said they saw 6 buses loaded with ISIS members leaving the city early Saturday. Women and children were seen inside the buses. Later Saturday, 14 members of ISIS were executed after trying to flee with their families from Mosul to Raqqa, the witness said. Sources said they believe those executed could have been the same people seen leaving by buses earlier Saturday. On Friday, ISIS set fire to trenches filled with crude oil outside northeastern Mosul, according to military sources. Black smoke has intensified Saturday. The UN Refugee Agency says more than 1 million people could be fleeing Mosul once the military operation gets underway. They'll need assistance and shelter, said Filippo Grandi, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, who is on a 4-day visit to Iraq. Push toward Mosul, Baghdad has become a target of ISIS suicide attacks. On Saturday, at least 34 people were killed and 35 others injured in suicide bombing that targeted a Shia in the Iraqi capital of Al-Shab district, according to police sources. ISIS claimed responsibility for the attack in a statement released by the ISIS-affiliated Amaq agency. So there's that information. And the last one that I have for you is off of regated.com, and it says North Korea and Russia go head to head. After recent border skirmish between Russia and North Korea forces, the question on everyone's mind is what happened to that supposed friendship. It is safe to say, just like any geographical relationship, the Russian-Korean bilateral affair is on the ice. First off, we need some facts. Number one, the North Korean fishing vessel was stopped by Russian border security. Number two, the North Koreans resisted inspection from the Russians. Number three, the Russians opened fire. This resulted in the death of one of the 48 North Korean fishermen, according to the Russian Federal Security Service, or the FSB, the KGB's successor agency. The fishermen were acting erratically and failed to comply to orders from the border unit. During the search and control activities, Russian border guards found illegally obtained water bioresources on board the vessel. The ship's crew behaved aggressively toward members of the search group, refusing to comply with legal requirements. The FSB said in a statement via coverage from RT, the Federation statement-controlled media arm. In efforts to flee, the fishermen tried to leave exclusive economic zones owned by Russia, but in an effort to secure the violator vessel, border authorities popped off warning shots. The North Korean boat continued to execute maneuvers. Thus, after boarding the vessel, FSB personnel were attacked, ergo leading to the firefight between Russian authorities and the fishermen. FSB comments on the matter indicate one of the members of the search team sustained a head injury. FSB also stated that the border agents rationalized shooting the Korean fishermen to prevent obtaining weapons from the border guards and further harming them any further. 9 crew members of the intruder ship were injured. One of them later died, the FSB stated. FSB also indicated that DPRK, diplomatic authorities stationed in the city of Vladivostok, Russia, has been notified of the situation. At the examination of the English page of the Korean Central News Agency, or the KCNA, the state-owned media branch of Kim Jong-un's government, there is no mention of fishermen dying. Nevertheless, KCNA is used as propaganda tool and shouldn't be expected, for the North Korean authorities would risk anything not to stifle the state-levied ignorance to reality the population morbidity suffers from. In this case, the KCNA silence is expected. As aforementioned in the beginning of this report, will these border skirmish threaten relations between Russia and the North Koreans? In a sense, I would have to say that the pushback will be noticeable, but the overall operating system in play for the authoritarian state's foreign relations suggests otherwise. Considering recent reports, Moscow supposedly allowed North Korean nuclear researchers to work and study in Russian facilities. The report, coming from a former United Nations Security Council staffer, may lend some connection to the North successfully testing ballistic missile technology. The most recent account of Russian-North Korean diplomatic friendliness can be seen in a report from NK News, the West's leading media authority on North Korea. The diplomatic staff from Russia saw an uptick at the Russian embassy in Pyongyang. Russia, alongside China, has put the United States on blast for increasing sanctions and moving for a tighter missile defense on the Orient because of North Korea's rising nuclear power. One Russian general even stated that Russian military experts believe that U.S. hopes to gain the capability to strike any region of the world, including Russia and China, with nuclear-tipped missiles with impunity, sent via the Australian. American officials have indicated that such moves are directed only at North Koreans. Regardless, I think you get the picture. There won't be too many setbacks between Russia and North Korea. Putin will continue to work with the great leader and move the last stronghold of the Cold War era aggressivism closer to nuclear capacity. So that's what I had for you this evening, and I hope you enjoyed the special edition. And if I come up with a whole bunch more, I'll bring you another one. Bye.